Hello and welcome to this edition of the Payoff. I'm Drew Goldfarb, joined by Rick Rockwell. We're going to be diving into the world of professional wrestling, where we'll be discussing storylines, ideas, and of course potential payoffs on prop betting as well. This weekend is All Elite Wrestling's debut pay-per-view, Double or Nothing in Las Vegas. Second, if you want to count last year's All In pay-per-view, though that wasn't done by AEW specifically. We're going to start this week looking at a few of the marquee matchups from the show and giving you our picks and betting tips. We're going to start with brother versus brother. It is Cody versus Dustin, a battle of the Rhodes family. Rick, which Rhodes brother are you picking here?
If it was 10 years ago, I'd be going with Dustin. But you got to go with Cody on this one here. He's basically the brainchild to all of this. And not only that, he's in his prime right now. And I believe this company is going to be more built on his in-ring success and his character development than it will his brother. I read an article the other day, Jim Ross saying both these Rhodes boys were born to be in wrestling, and that this match was going to be a reflection of that, or the epitome of that. So with that said, I think we're going to have a great match. I think they're going to put on a match that might not be as exciting physically as some of the other matches, but the storytelling, the in-ring psychology, all that stuff, the meaning behind the moves, all of that will have a great result. And I'm going with Cody, though. I mean, if we do end up finding some betting odds, they'll have to be largely in favor of Cody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is to me, it comes across as more of a gift of sorts from Dustin to Cody, an endorsement, I'm behind you, brother kind of thing. This is the match that everybody wanted in WWE 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. And it was never given to us in the form that we wanted. I'm very much looking forward to it. Dustin Rhodes, formerly Goldust, is a bit older. I mean, the Goldust character debuted in the mid-90s, so he's been wrestling for decades at this point. I don't see anybody other than Cody winning, especially when AEW is making such a big deal about wins matter. I can't imagine them putting a guy who's at least going to be one of their... I don't know if they'll put like a belt on him immediately just to avoid that whole the guy who's founding the company is putting the belt on himself kind of shtick, but... I mean, this is going to be Cody over Dustin. This is going to end with a hug. And maybe Cody, if he's trying to then get some heat back from that, then, further beating up his brother, who knows. But this is going to be Cody winning. I think it's going to be a beautiful match because of the underlying tones of it. I'm looking forward to every Dusty spot we get. I want every move. I want to see some polka dots somewhere. We don't know what interests me with this is I wonder what Dustin Rhodes is going to look like. Because if you've seen all the promotional materials, he's got like half of his face painted, and we haven't seen him outside of WWE doing a face painted gimmick where it wasn't that thing he did in Impact where he wasn't physically in the best of shape. Or God knows what WCW was trying to do with him way back when.
I wish he would just come out looking like he did back in the WCW days when he was younger. Dustin Rhodes, bleach blonde hair.
That's kind of Cody's thing, though, now.
I think that would be even better if they did it that way than him coming out,
yeah,
eat it up and everything. I'm tired of that. He's better than that, in my opinion.
I mean, I agree. I think it'll be interesting, though. That's what kind of like why I like the 50-50 is it almost seems like a tribute to his career. Kind of thing. Like if this is because he hasn't been, I mean, he's obviously wrestled with WWE over the last handful of years, but he hasn't been a featured player in a while. And I think that this might be a good kind of like swan song send off, although who knows? We don't know. The beauty of AEW is we don't have a history with them specifically to go back to. So that'll be interesting. But I agree with you. It'll be Cody over Dustin in that one. We have a rematch. Technically, hasn't happened in AEW before, but is Alpha versus Omega, Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega. Omega won in their first battle, which was in Japan. Chris Jericho is a guy who has got to be Dustin Rhodes' age, thereabouts, and just seems timeless. He'll be going forever, but who's your pick for this match?
since it was announced, I have been leaning towards Kenny Omega, but as we get closer to the event, I feel myself flip-flopping and going towards Y2J. Well, we can't call him Y2J, but Chris Jericho, the Lionheart, let's call him that. I feel like he's such a key player. I mean, both of them are key players. But if you look at it from the average fan, the casual fan, Chris Jericho's name would probably be at the top of the list of recognizable wrestlers that they have. So you got to ask the question, on their first major pay-per-view, are we going to have Jericho lose being the biggest star of the company at right now? Is this the time that you put Omega over cleanly to a large audience that might not have seen him before? In my opinion, see, when I think about that more, I say you save that more towards when they get the TV show and stuff and they have Jericho build them up like that. I think give Jericho the win now, keep the feud going, have Omega win the feud ultimately whenever they decide to resolve that, most likely on TNT or a pay-per-view down the line after they get their TV show. But I'm going with Chris Jericho on this one. I think he's going to win hook or crook. By hook or by crook.
You know, I was all in. I guess that's a bad pun, but I was all in on picking Kenny Omega for this one. Your logic makes a lot of sense. The one hang-up is that they have said that the winner of this match will be in whatever mini tournament they're doing to determine their inaugural champion or to get a championship match down the line. And I think Jericho's a good opponent. I don't know if he's a good... If it's going to be for a vacant, like just introduced championship, I don't think Jericho is an intriguing option because I think he's the guy that you put into the match to lose. I think Jericho's a good first opponent for a champion if you've got whoever it might be that they were decide to crown as the inaugural AEW World Champion. But Omega is more intriguing in a potential match to crown the inaugural champion than Jericho is. You could go back to when WWE did the Universal Championship. Everyone was thrown off by the fact that it wasn't Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, but the fact that it was Balor, or even if it had been Reigns versus Rollins, neither of those were guys who were being thrown in to make the belt look good in defeat. They were both, you went into that match and you said, okay, I mean, Rollins has won the WWE Championship before. He's a superstar, but Balor was the NXT champion. He's been made to be a big deal. You didn't know which way they were going to go with it. And you would have said the same thing with Reigns. You would have said, well, Reigns seems like the obvious pick, but Rollins is really good. It wasn't like they, put Chris Jericho in that situation. And I think that Jericho can, because he signed a multi-year deal with them, so he could be a player that could make him the champion to try to get the belt over with a more wide-reaching audience. And I think that would be a really good option, but I don't know. I've got to pick Omega because if the company is saying wins and losses matter, I don't think that Kenny Omega starts 0-1 if that's going to stick. So I'm picking Omega to beat Jericho, but we will see in just a couple days. Let's go to a championship match. There are titles on the line for this one. It's not the AEW Championship, but the AAA World Tag Team Championship. The Young Bucks, Matt Jackson, Nick Jackson, they're defending champions going up against the Lucha Brothers, Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix, the challengers. Who are you taking for this match?
I was, once again, originally leaning towards the Young Bucks, the Jackson boys, to win in the match, keeping the belts.
Did I win you over?
What's that?
Did I win you over on this one?
You won me over on this one. You had a strong point, and it was a point that I could not get over. And that point is the fact that this isn't an AEW tag title. This is AAA tag title. And although they want to have a strong working relationship with AAA and other promotions, the best way to do that is to have actual AAA stars, the Lucha Brothers, win the belts. They can come back and forth. They can compete for the all elite tag titles. They can have a tournament, whatever they do with that instead. It'll be a great match no matter what happens. But I believe the Jackson boys are going to end up losing. They're going to drop the belts.
So that is the point that won me over to the Lucha Brothers winning originally was it's their companies, their organizations' championships. And the other thing too is that, at least for me, and you've switched over to Jericho, but I think they don't want to give out those, oh, it's Hogan, Nash, and Hall in WCW vibes of the bookers are booking themselves to win. So I think the Young Bucks become the sacrifice there, because it's an easy one where it's not the AEW championships that they'd be giving up. It's the AAA World Tag Team Championships. So I think that this is the easiest of the three for them to book an AEW management group to lose without it having the negative impact. If Cody loses to Dustin, Cody starts much lower on the ladder, wins loss wise than you would anticipate, and any momentum to him maybe going to the World Championship would be down. Omega for me is the same way with Jericho. I understand your side on things on that one. I got to think the Lucha Brothers are going to do it. By the way, I saw Pentagon Jr. in person for the first time at WrestleMania a year ago that weekend, and that guy, in addition to being an awesome in-ring competitor, that his look is the most like brilliantly creepy, disturbing, amazing. Like, it is, I think, what WWE wishes Bray Wyatt was turning into right now. I don't know if someone showed Vince Jr. a picture of Pentagon Jr. with the face paint, but oh my God, yeah, Cerro Mielo, the Lucha Brothers are going to win back their championships. That's just I love Pentagon Jr. too.
He's the modern version of La Parka. Now he just needs to get up and dance on a chair.
I don't know if we'll see that at AEW. It would be interesting, but those two I'm really looking forward to that match. I think that could be they really have said that they want to just emphasize tag team wrestling, and I think that is the potential show stealer because of it. Because if they're going to showcase tag team wrestling, you've got to start it strong, and Lucha Brothers and Young Bucks could be a very good one to do that. So that's the AEW Double or Nothing pay-per-view. That is this weekend. We're very much looking forward to seeing it, although for the $50 that they're charging on pay-per-view, I've gotten too used to the network being $10 a month.
Yeah.
That is the one thing that I'm not excited about at all, is $50. The tickets, because I had originally purchased tickets and I am now unable to go, so I had to move them. But my seats in the lower bowl with all of the fees were $50 a pop, and I could have sat 20 rows from the floor for the same price as buying the pay-per-view. I mean, that's. I hope that they end up working out. I know that it's harder for a new company to try to work that WWE network model, because that to sustain $10 a month seems crazy, but they've got that being the Elite series. They can do the web stuff where the fan base might be into it enough to get that bonus content every week. Might be worth it, where they could theoretically figure that out, because I don't know. That's the biggest hang up for me for this being like a huge success, is they're in a world where WWE for, what is it now, 4 years has been asking people for $10 a month, that they're now charging $50. That to me is the biggest holdup on that, because I don't know if you intend to purchase it at least immediately and live, but that's a hang up I'm struggling to get past.
Yeah, I'm gonna just go with no comment.
Well, I do look forward to hopefully seeing it and being able to watch it, and hopefully maybe like a replay will be cheaper, or if they've got it like on demand by Monday, that'll be nice, because I really do want to see all of these matches on it and see the kind of production value that they do too, because that'll be the interesting thing with it, to compare them to WWE, is even without the pyro, WWE's production values are very high. I have no doubts that they'll be able to match it, or to at least get close enough. But yeah, $50 is hard to get past when there's no TV show leading into it necessarily. But let's shift over to WWE. Let's recap Money in the Bank, because that was last week. That was our debut edition of the Payoff. Someone who wasn't on the odds board ended up winning the men's Money in the Bank and then treating it like a boombox on Raw. So Brock Lesnar is back. I am a little torn on it, but what do you think as far as Brock being the beast in the bank for the men's side? Is that a good way to use him since he doesn't show up more than once every 10 weeks?
I feel like it was the what am I trying to think of? It was the cheap way out for WWE. It was the scapegoat way out. It was they should have went with somebody else to win that. I would have loved to see McIntyre win it. Having Brock show up unannounced was a nice surprise. However, having him come out there and win the Money in the Bank, and now we get the whole Beast in the Bank and him teasing whenever he teases or showing up whenever he shows up, it's not as exciting as maybe they thought it would be when they came up with this idea in the first place. I'm still a fan of Brock Lesnar. I still think he should be world champ because your world champ should be an attraction, and he is one of the only wrestlers in the entire business that you can say is a legitimate attraction. But giving him the briefcase in the way they did it, it just felt cheap. It just felt like it did a disservice to the rest of the guys in the match. And seeing how they played out on Raw and SmackDown, I'm not a big fan of the angle. Hopefully it picks up some steam along the way, but not really excited over it at all.
I'm a little intrigued by it because there were a lot of better candidates to get that that push from getting the briefcase when they were like, oh, I guess we're only starting with 7. I'm going, wait, is Bray Wyatt returning? Is this how they're going to do it? Is Orton going to climb and then the lights go out and Bray just shows up in that mask, staring down at the top of the ladder kind of thing. I was thinking like, okay, what NXT stars might they try to call up? If they could do that, is there anybody returning from injury? That kind of thing, or someone who hasn't been on TV in a while. But I agree with you that it was, hearing his music hit was like, I popped for it, but I agree that there was that immediate like, oh my God, Brock Lesnar's again back in the championship picture. But he is back, and I think that he is better served with the briefcase than he is with a title. And the reason for that is because if he's not going to defend it at every pay-per-view, at every network special, I'd rather him be in a situation where the moment I hear his music hit, I go, oh my God, that's happening. As opposed to, oh, yeah, because SummerSlam's in 2 weeks. Or, oh yeah, Survivor Series is coming up. Or, okay, who is he facing at the Rumble? Who is he beating this time? I think that there's a lot of potential for just his music hitting at random moments in the next 6 months. Because I hope that he holds it for a long time. Because I want that to be just on a random Raw when he hasn't shown up and his music hasn't hit in 3 or 4 weeks and there's been no mention of him, that suddenly Seth Rollins is having a match and all of a sudden you hear his music. And you can use it to further Rollins' storylines or Kofi's storylines by having a potential opponent pick up a win, a roll-up, a sneaky win, just because Lesnar's music's hitting. And he doesn't even have to show up but he can just laugh from his couch or from his ranch or whatever on the video board if he wants. But I love the idea of being able to use his music as, because he is a draw. He is something that when it's like, oh, Brock Lesnar's going to be on Raw, you go, ooh, something's happening, because they don't use Lesnar for like he'll randomly show up, but it's like they use him mostly for big time things. So the fact that you don't know when that's going to happen, but it's a possibility on any show at any time, that to me is exciting. If they make him cash it in quick, then it's a waste. But if they drag it out and he cashes in February, that'll be amazing.
What they probably should do is have him win, come out and win on the first episode of SmackDown on Fox. Cash it in, win it then. Make Fox happy because they want the big stars. They paid the big money.
Yeah. That's a way to go. If you want to set the tone on that, just have Lesnar be off TV, off the pay-per-views for 2 months, and then suddenly on the first SmackDown, you could have the champ, you You could basically open it up with everybody surrounding the ring or on the stage, and whomever giving the speech, whether it's Triple H or a GM or whoever they want to have, as being like the welcome to SmackDown Live on Fox on Friday nights, and the champion just get ambushed on the stage by Lesnar and just beat down whoever it is, if it's Kofi, if it's anybody, just get beat down all the way down the ramp. Lesnar's dragging a referee with one hand and just beating up the champion with the other, or smacking with the briefcase or something, laughing the whole way, cash in. That's how you open the show and you set the tone. And then it's, okay, this is great. You've got, let him just show up at a couple pay-per-views then to defend it. Whoever's going to be on the road to trying to take him down at Mania or at the Royal Rumble. That would be exciting. I think there's a lot of potential for this. It's not the I really wanted McIntyre because I wanted to see him get that endorsement. It's not Ricochet, who I really want to see get it, or Ali, because that would be great to see him get the endorsement. But I think that the Lesnar win has the most potential for unbelievably exciting story arcs leading up to a cash-in of any of them. I think that everybody else is a little bit more standardized. I think this one is a bit unique. In the same way that it would have been if they had Johnny Gargano come down and win, because he would never be on TV. He'd just be showing up on NXT with the briefcase, and suddenly his music would hit, and you wouldn't know when. And that would have been exciting. Or same with Velveteen Dream or, anybody. Adam Cole, Bebe. But I think Lesnar's got a lot of potential on it, which is something that I would not have said 6 months ago. So I think that's interesting at the very least. Back to the Money in the Bank recap. Rollins retained. Kofi retained. Becky Lynch retained against Lacey Evans, and then Charlotte Flair picked up the win until she was cashed in on by Bayley, who won the women's Money in the Bank. So just covering all of the ground on the women's matches for the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. What did you think of the way that they did it? Obviously, Bayley was one of the favorites. She was near the top of the betting odds to win the Money in the Bank. Obviously, that the one cash-in ended up paying out, which was just going to even money, I think, if I'm remembering correct. So what were your thoughts as far as that went with those, what ended up being 4 matches for the women?
Honestly, I think the WWE made a mistake with how they booked Becky Lynch post-WrestleMania. And then putting her in the corner of having to defend both belts at once was a dumb idea. They should have just had her defend the Raw title at one pay-per-view or 1 week and the SmackDown at another show or whatever. On the same show, that was stupid. So first of all, everybody that's got Becky 2-belt shirts needs to get rid of them. Send them with Kofi to Ghana when he leaves in a couple days, because it was pointless. You build up all that hype for Becky 2 belts, and then the first time she defends both belts, you take one of the belts off her. And then, we talked about it, or I wrote it in one of my previews. Having Lacey come out and interfere was not unexpected, because it just made sense. If she's going to lose, have her come out, interfere. That way she can still stay relevant in a feud with Becky Lynch moving forward. But having Charlotte win and then turn around and lose it right away to Bayley, I'm not a fan of that. I think Charlotte, first of all, is the best female wrestler in the world. And I'll probably say that for the next 25 years. I think she should have had the belt longer. I don't think, first of all, I didn't even think Bayley should have won it. I thought Mandy Rose should have won it. I like Bayley. She's from California. She's a good worker. I can't stand the hugging gimmick anymore. But I just don't feel like putting it on her at this point in time was needed. I feel like they could have went with Charlotte longer as the champion. She would have done more to elevate the women's division on SmackDown than Bayley will. And then doing the whole cop out of teaming Bayley and Becky up on SmackDown and stuff. Listen, WWE is overthinking things with the women right now. They should have kept it more simple. I complain about their storylines a lot because a lot of the time it's just bad. I feel like they just overthought this a little too much. I felt like the smart thing would have been to keep the belts on Becky. However, you would have decided to do that. Let Bayley cash in at a later time and not at the same show. You just did that last year with Alexa Bliss. It's like you're doing the same thing over and over. It becomes less entertaining, becomes less exciting. It lacks meaning in the end.
See, I think that having Becky lose one, and by the way, the whole Charlotte thing, they're just counting up her title reigns because she's now up to 9 because technically that 30 seconds counts.
Yeah.
But the thing with Becky is that I think that they had 3 options on how she could have left Money in the Bank. She could have left with 2 titles, 1 title, or no titles. And I think that 1 title is the least intriguing. What would have been interesting, because Bayley is who she is, and I think that there are people. I still really like Bayley. I'm still a fan of hers. I get, though, the people who, like you, were a little worn out by the hugger gimmick. The most interesting thing that could have happened to me after Charlotte won was Lacey and Charlotte beating up Becky, Becky getting some stuff in on Charlotte, and Lacey leaving Becky laying and leaving the ring with both Charlotte and Becky down, and having Bayley then rush in and getting to see her get torn. And if she cashed in on Becky, I think that would have been unreal. I think we'd be talking about that as being like one of the most unbelievable. We wouldn't be going, oh, they took Becky 2 belts and they turned her into Becky 1 belt or no belts. We'd be going, they turned Bayley. Basically, Becky's best friends through, that are still in good standing with the company from the 4 Horsewomen, both turned on her. And we'd be looking at going a build back to, the feud of Becky versus Bayley with Bayley being on that would have been really interesting. And then Becky again just basically using the wild card rule to mess with Charlotte or to try to get her title back. That would have been really interesting to me. And I kind of thought when she rushed down that was where her hesitation was. And I didn't realize that Becky was already out of the ring. I thought that Bayley was trying to pick which champion to cash in on. She wasn't. She was doing the whole, am I going to do this? Am I going to do this? Do I cash in thing? I would have loved her to have cashed in on Becky. Because I think that if you're going to take one, take both and let her chase again. Yeah. And let her basically have been betrayed by everyone, make her that lone wolf, not Baron Corbin. But let her do that, and I think that would have been interesting. Bayley cashing in on Charlotte sets that up nicely for Charlotte versus Becky, or Bayley, which is, there will be great matches, but I think it would have been, I think Becky retaining on both would have been interesting. I think that Becky retaining on both and then retaining on a cash-in attempt would have been really interesting, and I think that Becky losing both belts would have been really interesting, especially if one is to a cash-in to a friend of hers and another is, it doesn't even have to be by screwy means. It could have just been because Charlotte ambushed her. They could have had another 20-minute match. Lacey doesn't have to come out until the aftermath. Charlotte could have literally just said, I took advantage. I'm the queen. That's what I do. But I'm still interested. I still really like Becky Lynch. I'm curious to see if she tries to go back for getting both belts or if she's going to just move into just focusing on Lacey Evans more full-time. But, it'll be interesting. I think that they missed 2 really intriguing possibilities of making Becky just that, building her up to be that just pure badass that was waiting for maybe a SummerSlam opponent of Shayna Baszler. Who could take her a belt from Becky, 2 belts? If she could defend it 2, maybe 3 times successfully, that's how you debut Shayna. And let Shayna Baszler take one off of her. If you let her lose both, Becky's chasing again, and you get to have her have 2 matches at another pay-per-view. And then at that point, if she wins them both back and then she gets cashed, whatever. But anyway, Yeah, I enjoyed the pay per view. I thought that the matches were all good. I was a little confused by the three options that what they could have gone with for the women's that they picked. I think the least intriguing of the three.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to see the Ember Moon spot, the eclipse off the ladder.
Yeah, you did.
That was brilliant.
You also got to see Rey Mysterio win.
Yeah, you were right on that one. So no Eddie Guerrero t-shirt callbacks, though, unfortunately.
No.
And I was hoping to see Dominic get in the ring with that beatdown. I mean, geez, Joe got messed up in that match.
Yeah.
Was it the seated senton that did that? Like, did he catch like a leg across the face from Ray?
So I think so.
But
that's the reason the rumor and the reports are that's the reason they ended the match quickly. But who knows?
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, he just came up and he had no blood just gushing from his nose, and he had like that pool under his eye, which I thought looked worse because I thought his eye was bleeding. Which didn't that happen? Was it when he was facing Finn Balor in NXT at like the WrestleMania weekend in Dallas, where they had to like keep pausing the match because he kept getting his eye got really messed up. So I was having flashbacks to that. But yeah, that was yeah, you were correct on that one. And then Shane slipping out of his jersey. I feel like that one should have seen coming, where you've got the stipulation that always is going to favor a sneaky heel.
Yeah, it's just
he's the best in the world. He's the best in the world, Rick. Come on.
The storyline's starting to get a little old with Shane winning.
I'm waiting to see him get his comeuppance, and at some point he turns into Stephanie, where she just never gets it. But
pretty much.
We got a throwback on Raw. I don't think there will ever be betting odds on this one unless it's number of title changes in a week, because the 24/7 championship, which is back, unveiled by Mick Foley. They only have him unveil the hideous belts. If it's an ugly belt design, get Mick Foley in there because, you know, everybody loves Foley. So, but they still booed because it looked like a hubcap on that weird green belt that Braun Strowman got for fighting in Saudi Arabia last year. But Titus O'Neil, the first champion, by just picking up the belt and leaving the ring. Robert Roode rolled him up on the rampway, and then R-Truth tricked him. I think this could be really interesting just because I love the idea of it with the network. We were talking about this during the week, though. There's a lot of ways that if they basically like reined in some of the craziness that the 24/7 rule that Crash Holly had introduced with the hardcore title way back when, if they reined it in a bit, it could make this really good. I'm interested by it, but other than how ugly the belt is, what do you think of the 24/7?
Oh my God, this ranks up there with Bastion Booger, the Gobbledygooker, Paul Roma and the Four Horsemen, and so forth. Like this is bad. This is bad. This is like epic bad. Superstar Billy Graham stated on his social media that this is the beginning of the end of the WWE. We're watching it right now. I have a hard time disagreeing with him in terms of at least the creative direction that they're going with their on-air programming is bad. This was terrible. And poor Mick Foley, like the crowd just didn't care. The belt itself just looked terrible. The idea of how to get the belt in the first place looked terrible. The fact that every show is just going to be chaos to try and get the belt. It would be better served if they treated it like a legitimate belt that's defended on every platform any day of the week and stuff, not people chasing R-Truth in drag around the stadium, out of the stadium, down the street, and whatever else. Like, we're living in an era where belts are already devalued with the WWE. So when you bring another belt, at least it should have more meaning to it and not just be thrown out as some gimmick. Although it used to be belts meant something. They meant that, like when Bret Hart, even though, he believes a little too much in himself, but he believed he was the best. That's why he's the champ. And now he has to represent that belt as being the best in the business, no matter what company we're talking about. That doesn't happen anymore. We don't have that. The only person that brings that kind of credibility to a belt is Brock Lesnar. And then people get upset because he's not there all the time. Well, he's not there all the time because he doesn't have to be there all the time, because not many people can even compete with Brock Lesnar in the ring. Second of all, I would rather see Brock Lesnar go after the 24/7 belt than I would see him go with the other belts. But with that said, it's all just like you've come up with some good ideas. I've seen some other good ideas online of what they can do with the belt. The problem is the WWE doesn't have many good ideas left in their think tank right now. And instead of listening to their fans or listening to some prominent critics like yourself and myself, they don't. They come up with just hot garbage. I can't take it. Like, I can't take this nonsense.
Brock Lesnar as a 24/7 champion would be amazing, because they could basically just spend a couple of days taping 6 months worth of matches for him, where he just sit on his couch watching TV. Someone rolls up, or he's out like on a tractor or something, and someone tries to challenge him, and he just one F5 and it's over. And they could literally just intercut those throughout time. And what I had said to you earlier in the week is the one thing they could add to this to make this really interesting is a 30-minute challenge rule, where the person who is challenging for the 24/7 title has to give the champion 30 minutes to accept the challenge. They have to do it in person. They have to do it with a referee there. And the champion has 30 minutes from that moment to begin the match, wherever they are. So if they wanted to get ready, if they needed to, if they were literally in the showers, like if they just called in, like knocked on the door, and, backstage, were like, 30 minutes, you and me, like something like that. Or if they're sitting in a car, or if they're at a restaurant, and someone's like just starting their hamburger, there's a lot of interesting things that they could do with that. And what it would allow for is, it would allow for them to do push alerts on the WWE Network and the WWE app or Twitter that goes, oh, John Cena's challenging R-Truth for the 24/7 title. Tune into the WWE Network. The match starts within the next 30 minutes. Because the amount of people that go, oh, it's 7:30 p.m. on a Thursday, I'll just pop that up and I'll see what's going on. They'll cut in. Would be really interesting, or to do that on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or whatever outlets they want to do, or doing it at a house show. It would allow for a little bit more structure for a very unstructured thing, and it would make it like a TV title that could be defended on the internet, at any point in time. And I think that would make it a lot more interesting. I like the chaos of it. I think that it's better than some of the, getting a 30-second match might end up being, or a chase might end up being, a better cutaway segment than some of the stuff they've run with. So if it does away with some of the garbage, then, as far as filler programming goes, it's fine. I think it could be a really, really, really good belt, depending on if they either put it on someone who can retain it for a while and will defend it all the time, or if they can just bring it in, even if it's like a 10-minute heads up. What you're trying to do with that rule is to make it so that fans could have enough time and warning to tune in and see it live. Even if it's like a camera guy on his phone, on his iPhone, like live streaming it on Instagram. To be able to do that, to give people enough heads up that it's happening, to be able to watch it, that's where the 24/7 rule for the Hardcore Championship was 15 years early. It was because if the network was there and they could do it where they were going to give you a little bit of a heads up, the network is the perfect format. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. You could do it on anything, and it would be YouTube, and it would be outstanding. Or if they put it on someone like a Brock Lesnar, or if they put it on John Cena and he'd be doing like a media tour, and suddenly here comes Cesaro to challenge him. I think that there's a lot of interesting potential if you put it on someone who is going to win and retain for a long time. All the better if it's someone like Cena, where the belt's not in the arena at all times, where it's literally someone has to go seek him out, or The Undertaker. where, literally just like he could just turn and look at the guy and something. You'd be like, on second thought, I'm not gonna try. But I think it's like a lot of things that have been done lately. I think it's 75% of the way there. It's just not like they need another week in hashing out the finer points and another month of designing. But it's because I do think it's like 75% of the way there. I mean, it has the makings of something that could be really exciting. Wouldn't you agree on that?
The WWE has the makings for a lot of things to be exciting, but their track record hasn't been that great over the last couple of years. I just hope down the road, if they have some legitimate competition from All Elite, it'll force the WWE to do better. That's what I'm holding out hope for. Otherwise, this is going to be ugly. It's going to be an ugly summer, an ugly fall, and WWE could be in trouble in terms of their ratings as they continue to not be that good at all.
Yeah, but $1 billion from Fox will,
But the $1 billion from Fox also brings a lot more pressure to meet whatever requirements they want them to meet, or at least standards or ratings or whatever.
Sure, but I mean, I think that they might be in trouble creatively of following like that mid-90s slump, but I don't think that they're in trouble financially of being overtaken. AEW, if they need to do the storytelling, because like we were talking about, is we know that the wrestling in AEW is going to be outstanding. The in-ring is going to be great. And it'll probably surpass WWE. Whether it gets old seeing matches that are all just like, let's put on a 4.5-star match. Like that's as far as match structure goes. Remains to be seen. But the biggest thing for them is going to be storytelling, because as much as WWE's creative direction hasn't been perfect or even great or even maybe good in a lot of cases, their storytelling abilities are still leaps and bounds better than any other alternative that is currently out there. The reason that Impact, TNA, whatever you want to call it at the time, was a real competitor for a few years or had the chances was because their storytelling, the way they built up guys like AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, worked. The way that their storytelling, that was what was intriguing. The X Division in Impact was always going to provide amazing wrestling. And seeing guys like Joe, like Styles, even 5 years ago when they were hitting their prime, I mean, even when they had like Christian, that was it was his run there that got WWE to go, maybe he's not just like the B player in a tag team.
Yeah.
The in-ring was always good, except when it was like Hogan and that whole shtick, or Jeff Hardy and Sting at that one pay-per-view. But
Jeff Hardy smoking a cigarette was hilarious.
Yeah, but the in-ring, it's when the storytelling catches up that you have a true competitor.
Yeah.
And that was when WCW overtook WWF in the late 90s, was when the NWO became more intriguing story-wise, because the in-ring wasn't you had the luchadors and you had the cruiserweights, Eddie Guerrero and Mysterio and Dean Malenko and all those guys doing amazing things.
LWO.
I did enjoy the LWO, but it was my third favorite among WOs. It was still ahead of the Blue World Order. But yeah, you got to have the storytelling to be a competitor, because the in-ring performance art is not going to reach as wide of a fan base as John Cena is my superhero.
Yeah.
And if you can't tell that story, which Cody Rhodes is the son of Dusty Rhodes. There's nothing that suggests that Cody cannot storytell by any means.
Oh, I think they have all the creative minds there that they need to be successful. Yeah. I think Cody, his brother, even good old JR, you know, they will bring that old school storytelling element that lacks in a lot of what. Well, Jericho, I mean, they've got the foundation there. It's just a matter of delivering when the time comes.
And that'll be the biggest thing to see and it starts this weekend with Double or Nothing, which we gave you our picks for at the beginning of the video. whether AEW can establish itself through storytelling as well as the in-ring and as well as production as a true competitor. Those were our picks and our for Double or Nothing and our recap of Money in the Bank and that 24/7 championship. If we ever see odds on the 24/7 title, we will make sure to give you our pick. I would guess it would have to just be an over-under of title changes at a pay-per-view as a prop bet. That could be interesting to see. But for now, this has been the Payoff. We'll have plenty more next week as we discuss the storylines as they develop, random wrestling rants, and of course, bringing you available betting lines for pay-per-views. I'm Drew Goldfarb. He's Rick Rockwell. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next time, and enjoy AEW's debut pay-per-view, Double or Nothing.